Hey guys, I'm shooting this video to respond to all of your questions from enrollment verification. So thank you for completing that assignment. If you did enrollment verification, you are officially in the course. You're good to complete all of your assignments and you don't have to worry about being withdrawn. So thank you again for completing that assignment, and thank you for asking all of those really awesome questions. I'm going to make this video just to answer all of the questions that you guys have, and I already answered your questions individually within the quiz, but some of you asked, actually all of you asked questions that were great, and I think that I want to answer them for the whole class. So I'm making this video to talk about the questions and give you more information. Before I get started on going through what everybody wanted to know about this course, I just want to give a little shout out to Joshua, Deirdre, and Josie. You guys have already started the discussion board for the week, and I really appreciate that you've gotten started early. It's Saturday, so you guys have, everybody in the course has until Sunday, May 27th, so that's tomorrow, to complete the discussion board assignment and the Unit 1 quiz. I know a lot of you have started the Unit 1 quiz or have finished the Unit 1 quiz. You guys are doing a really good job on that. And then, of course, so even though everything is due tomorrow, you guys always have a 24-hour grace period to turn your work in, so you can get it turned in on Monday as well. And Monday is Memorial Day, so if you are going to use that 24-hour grace period, just think about kind of your plans for Memorial Day. If you are going to have a cookout, or go to the beach or do something really exciting, or just relax and do nothing, then you might want to go ahead and get your work done today and tomorrow, whatever, do your work. So just keep that in mind. And just as another reminder, if you miss the 24-hour grace period, then you can't turn your work in late, because it's discussion based and nobody's going to go back and look. We're going to move on. So if you have questions, let me know. If you need me to work with you on something, please send me an email before the deadline. Okay, I'm going to talk about these questions that I received for the enrollment verification assignment, and I'm just going to go through my answers to them. Somebody asked, by what day would you recommend having our initial 3 questions posted in order for everyone to have options to respond to? So I think this is a really good question, and I know there's a lot of teachers, when they do discussion boards, they say have your first 2 posts posted by Wednesday, and then respond again by Friday, and then respond again by Sunday, but I feel like whenever I was a student and whenever I was taking online classes, I took online classes because some things were going on in my life that didn't allow me to log into Blackboard every single day, or I couldn't maybe log into Blackboard until Sunday night. So for me, there's no requirement in terms of when you have to have your assignment posted, but I think that posting as early as possible is just really, really helpful. I also go through and post some questions throughout the week. Like right now, I've posted in Editha, and I've posted in an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. Both of those stories were really good, and I am going to be posting again in the other forums. So I try to post at least 1 or 2 questions early on in the week, just for those of you who do want to get started early but are noticing that not everyone else wants to get started early, and I know that can be frustrating. So the good thing is that for those of you who do want to get started early, you could post all 3 of your questions on Monday and go ahead and respond to one of your questions, and the only thing you would technically have to wait for would be one of your classmates to post a question, or of course for me to post a question, because you can always respond to my questions, and I'll try to post by Tuesday or Wednesday within the week. So what do I recommend? I recommend getting started as early as possible, but at the same time, I'm not I don't judge you if you have to wait until Sunday to get your work done, because this is an online class and I understand that people take them for various reasons. So great question, but I don't have a specific answer, I guess. Next question. My book has still not yet arrived. If it doesn't arrive within the week, will I be able to get an extension on the first assignment due at the end of this week, or could you post the first readings? So you can always email me if you guys need an extension on an assignment. I'm happy to work with you as long as I get that email and we can correspond before the deadline. But in terms of the readings, now of course this week you did have some chapter content, so you did have a quiz that you needed your book for, and yes, if anybody is struggling, you can take the quiz twice. If you want to try to take the quiz without your book, you certainly can. The stuff comes right out of the book, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can't find the answer somewhere else. But for those of you who are trying to do the discussion board without your book, well, the good thing about this unit is that all of these readings that we're looking at were posted or published between 1865 and 1914. So most of these works are in the public domain, which means that you can find them for free on the internet. And you might be thinking like, well, why do we have a book? Why do I have to pay like $65 for a stupid book? I know, I get it. I totally understand. It's just nice to have it all collected in one area. Plus there's chapter information that will help us. But anyway, so if you're trying to get the discussion board assignment accomplished, you don't necessarily need your book to do this discussion board. You probably need it for the quiz, and in that case, yes, please send me an email and I'll give you an extension. But you probably don't need it for the discussion board. So that's my answer to the second question that you see here. The third question, is there any other extra credit that's not posted? Sort of, yes and no. You'll notice that at the end of every self-assessment there is, or at the end of every lesson there's a self-assessment. Those are all extra credit quizzes, so you get 2.5 points for each self-assessment that you complete. They're not required, you don't have to do them. But not all of the self-assessments are posted. So while you'll have a ton of extra credit in the course, not all of them are up yet because I just don't have them all done yet. So the answer is yes and no. There's not going to be anything additional to the self-assessment extra credit, but they're not all there yet. So keep that in mind. Number 4, I see that you allow a 24-hour grace period for turning in assignments. Do you deduct points for turning in during the grace period, or can we still turn in for full credit? You can still turn it in for full credit. So I'm not ever going to take off points if you have to use that 24-hour grace period. If you have to get an extension, I'm not going to take off points for that either. Remember, if you need an extension, you have to contact me before the deadline. But, really it's just like it's all or nothing, right? So you turn it in and I grade it, and I don't take off points for it being late, or it's late and I don't grade it, right? You get a 0 for that assignment. So keep that in mind. Somebody asked any Hemingway. Yes, there's one Hemingway. There's only one. Well, there's one Hemingway reading in our book, Hills Like White Elephants. We will be reading that. Hemingway is not my favorite person. He's a misogynist, and you guys are like, oh, my teacher's such a feminist. Blah. Well, yes and no. You would have to know more about me to be able to really make that claim, but Hemingway really cannot write female characters very well. Most of his characters are male, and when he does write female characters, they have issues, and they're like my husband says, he treats them like pets, and it's very true. So yes, we will read Hemingway because he's integral. I mean, I've read a lot of Hemingway and his stuff is good, but thankfully we don't have to read too much Hemingway, is I guess what I'm saying. But yeah, we'll read Hemingway, and we'll read Faulkner, and we'll read all that good Southern Gothic stuff with all the weird stuff going on. Number 7, would you be able to release the reading assignments for the entire course? I love this question, and this is just really a question that, again, the answer is yes and no. As soon as I get my butt together in gear and plan the whole entire course out, I will release all the information for you guys. But I sort of plan segments like one segment at a time, just because I can't sit down and plan for like 13 hours in a row anymore. I used to be able to do that, but then my son was born, so now I can't. So as fast as I plan, I will get that information out to you guys. But until you see it, it's just because I don't have the plan yet. So, can I release all the reading assignments? I skipped number 6. Can I release all the reading assignments? Yes, I can, once I figure out what we're actually going to be reading. So, there you go. Is there a final exam for this course? No, we don't have any final exams. Like, you don't have to come in to meet me or anything like that. Someone actually also asked, is there a final for this course? They didn't say final exam, they said final. And my answer to that is there's a final essay, but you turn it on Blackboard. What is close reading? So close reading is really the process of digging into, Ashton, you asked this question, such a great question. This close reading is the process of really like digging into the language and the implied meaning. I like to say, someone said this when I was in college, keep your shoes on, right? Close reading means that you're really paying attention to the language, and you're paying attention to the symbolism, and you're paying attention to how different elements within the text connect and complement each other, or possibly oppose each other in order to make some type of argument. Close reading is analysis. It's really what it is. I say keep your shoes on because the alternative is reading like where you read in bed before you're about to shut the light off for the night, and that's the type of reading that you're gonna have a hard time doing for this class, because you're gonna fall asleep. Some of this stuff is boring, and some of it is not that interesting. Like the chapter content, I'm not a huge history fan, so this is sort of my personal take on it. Like, I don't want to necessarily read. I like to read action and stories and romance and fantasy and things like that, but I don't necessarily want to read about the details of the history of texts and things like that. So close reading means that you have to read those things, and you have to start to piece together these parts of a puzzle, and you want to just be looking at the details in order to understand this sort of implied or unstated meaning. So that is close reading, and we're going to talk a lot about that in week 2, because I feel like close reading is what you have to do all week, all semester long, in order to be successful on your writing assignments, like your discussion boards and your paragraph responses and your final essay. So keep that in mind. On our final written essay, will there be an opportunity to submit drafts and or ideas to you if we desire input on our progress? Yes, absolutely. Really, at any point, you can submit anything via email. If you're not ready to turn in a final, just send me an email and say, hey, I wrote this, and I was wondering if you could give me some feedback, if you can give me some comments. I would love to do that. I'll give you comments on your discussion boards. I'll give you comments on your paragraph responses. I'll give you comments on your final essay. I am always happy to take a peek at what you're doing in the class. The only thing that I ask is that you give me a heads up. Give me a couple days before the deadline or before you need to go ahead and make revisions, so that I can get that stuff back to you, because I'm very busy. I've got a lot going on. So if you email me the night before it's due and you say like, hey, can you read this really quickly? One of two things is going to happen. One, I'm going to be really overwhelmed. I'm going to do it anyway because I'm a nice person, and I'm probably going to stay up really late and later than I need to stay up, and it's going to stress me out. Or 2, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to read it, and I'm just going to be like, sorry, you didn't give me enough time. So just please make sure that if you're going to submit anything to me for feedback or comments before a deadline, then please give me at least 2 or 3 days, preferably. Some instructors drop the lowest grade of the course. Is this something that I do as well? No, I do not drop the lowest grade. I don't think that's necessary because of how much extra credit I'm giving out this semester. So if you're concerned about your grade and you want to make sure that you get in as many points as you possibly can. Don't rely on me to drop a low grade. Just make sure that you do all the extra credit and things like that. Is this a class I can work on throughout the week, or should I have a set day where I work on everything at once? That's really your personal preference. If you want to work on everything on one day, that's fine. I don't recommend it. That's a lot of reading and a lot of thinking. I would say do your reading first and do your writing second. So if you can read your 3 readings, and then if there's chapter content, that as well. If you can read those readings first, do that. Then you can, kind of be thinking about stuff and writing on it later. I understand that some of you have to sit down all on one day and get all of your work done because that's what your schedule allows, and that's okay. If you're prepared to do that, not a problem. So I don't really have an answer for you. I think that's just what you prefer to do. What is your favorite text of the ones you have assigned? That's a really hard question. Kate Chopin is, and we won't read her until next week or in Unit 2. I can't remember. Kate Chopin is a feminist author. She writes this novel called The Awakening, set in Louisiana in like right at the turn of the century. And it's about this main character, and she is really struggling with her role as a wife and with her role as a woman in this male-dominated society that she lives in, and she hates it. And in order to escape this society, escape this sort of like cage that she feels that she's in, she ends up like drowning herself in the ocean. It's beautiful. And I like that a lot. I love Kate Chopin. We're going to read The Storm, which is, maybe we're reading this, when are we reading The Storm? I don't even know. Y'all check the schedule. But The Storm is great. The Storm is about, what's that word? That word when, you cheat on your partner. What is that? Something with an A? Anyway, it's great. It's like this very charged, emotional story about like sexual tension and, does Calixta cheat on her adultery? That's the word. Does she commit adultery? Does she not do it? She totally does. But it's really interesting, and I love Kate Chopin because she's gonna present female characters doing not very proper things, right? It's great. So yeah, there's that. Faulkner is wonderful. So we're gonna read a little bit of him. He's Southern Gothic. If you've ever read anything by William Faulkner, I mean, he's got some really interesting characters that do some really fascinating kind of effed up stuff. He's great. So it's a hard question. I mean, there's some great authors that I've never read that I'll read because I'm teaching this class, and like Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. What a great story. I loved it. I'd never read Bierce before, but I really liked that. Okay, is the 8th edition of the book okay to use? Use your best judgment if you have taken this class before and you've used the 8th edition. That really depends on you, honestly. So I do not have a copy of the 8th edition to compare it to. This is a new book that I'm using for the first time, and I don't have the old book. So I can't tell you if the chapter content is the same, but what I can tell you is my experience with publishers. Most of the time, publishers do not make major changes to their chapter material, especially just between an issue or an edition, so I really think it's probably okay. My recommendation for you, and if like there's a reading missing, you can just Google it. Sure, that's no problem. But my recommendation for you is to read the first, chapter, and take the Unit 1 quiz that's due on Sunday. And if you can do the quiz and do a really good job, then you're probably fine. But if you find that the chapter is totally different from the questions, then the chapter content is probably different from what I'm reading in my shorter 9th edition, in which case you may want to go to the library and just use that book like in the library to take your quiz. I don't know if I would buy a whole new book. might just find an alternative, maybe email one of my classmates and say, hey, could you like text me the pictures of the reading? The publisher probably wouldn't want me to say that, but I don't care. Okay. Are the unit quizzes timed? No, you have as much time as you want. Take your time, use your book. Do well. Don't even stress. Okay. 15. Is MLA the format we'll be using the whole class? Yes. It is. We will. Approximately how long are each of the weekly required readings? Anywhere from like 6 to 20 pages, I think, so far. At the start of every unit, I am going to go over, or excuse me, at the start of every week, I'm going to give you a weekly overview video, and in that video, I'm going to go through the readings so that you can see, well, do I want to read this? You know, how long is it? Whatever, and I'll talk about that. And then also, you know, on the calendar, I give you the page range so you can do some calculations if you want, because I know the length matters to y'all. I know you're like, I want to read the 3 shortest readings. That's all I want to do. That's cool. I understand. It doesn't say anything about it in the syllabus. Will we be working with APA? Nope, we will not. MLA stands for Modern Language Association. In terms of writing about literature, it is the standard for literature classes. People who write scholarship about literature use MLA format because the publishers require that they do that. So I just want to keep on going with that standard. Do students like using Remind? I think the question was formatted differently, but I couldn't remember it, so I was typing in. Yes and no. I think I always have a quick survey at the end of the semester where I ask my students about this, and some of them say, you know, they just prefer the traditional communication, which is totally fine. But I do think that if you have a question and you need the answer immediately, then my students do like to use Remind because they can get the answer fairly quickly. Like sometimes I'm not right at my phone, so I can't always be messaging you back right away. But for the most part, I think yes, the students like it who use it and find it helpful. Although I used to send out a bunch of reminders on Remind, and I think that was annoying for them, but I don't do that anymore. So okay, I think that covers all the questions. Just as a reminder, y'all, please make sure that you're doing your quiz and your discussion board. That's due tomorrow, Sunday, May 27th by 11:59 p.m. Yes, you have 24 hours to get that completed, but if you have big plans for Memorial Day, you might not want to use that extra time. So send me an email if you have any other questions at all, and contact me if you need anything. I'm going to be really interested to see the questions and answers that you guys post in the discussion board. So I will stop making my videos so long, and I will end it here. Have a really good weekend, y'all. Happy Memorial Day.